Yes, well, there's a vibrancy in working with people that are dying. That there's a joy and a love that I don't think most people think it's, what they'll say to me is, how can you do that? It must be so depressing. How do you do it? Now, of course, it's sad, and we've cried with many, many people, you know, hundreds of people. But then on the other side of that sadness is such a joy because of love. I mean, love is, I think, the essential stuff that keeps the whole universe going. Without it, I think it would all implode, and it, you know, I think most people would agree that love is what makes life worth living.
The majority of people, at least in the Western world, are in such a disconnected place around being with dying people, with elderly, with people that are ill, is because it really calls on us to take a look at our own vulnerability and to take a look at our own mortality. And what does that mean to us? Impermanent issues around impermanence. And we're really not comfortable with that. We're not taught how to deal with suffering. You know, suffering really scares us in this culture.
All the questions, all the searching led me to issues of mortality. And I began to realize that no matter how fancy my footwork, how far I ran, I could not run away from death. And I needed to find out what it meant that I could not run away from death. In my professional life, I tried to stay away from issues of death and dying because of the emotional charge that resided in my soul around these issues. And over a period of years, about 10 years ago, I realized that I needed to get closer to death and dying in order to open my heart more, in order for me to find the soft spot, which is the gateway into compassion and learning. And so I went snuggled up to death and dying as a hospice chaplain. And there I've sort of remained, and although I'm a bereavement coordinator, I'm also a chaplain. And being with people as we discover what it means to be dying.
And if I can feel the sorrow, I can also feel the incredible joy of being alive.
When we can start to take the layers away and let ourselves be more fully present, that's just one of the gifts that comes out of, I think, out of human relationships. When the heart's present, when kindness is present, when really listening is there.
Yeah, I have a huge bucket list. I mean, life is sweet, and it's getting better, frankly. I feel good. I'm healthy as far as I know, and I'm just enjoying life ever more. I am serious about, you know, making sure that my two daughters know that I love them. I'm thankful for them. That I apologize to them with some regularity because I know that I still screw up, and I've not been the perfect father. Not for lack of trying, but so that and the same with my wife Yvonne and the people I love or once loved. And that's freeing for me, frankly. It allows me the freedom to play a little bit more in my life, including, frankly, in my professional life.
I'm the first one. I think part of why I'm doing this work is that I need this probably more than anybody. You know, it's being able to let go. I'm not great at letting go. You know, being able to embrace change, being able to allow something to die, having a conscious death of something. You know, those are all things that are really scary, and yet when we can step forward and have the courage and sort of the inner strength to do that, I think it really allows us to step through a threshold and mark something and move on to another part of our lives.
I have seen people who I thought wow, I wish that they could have had more resolution. And that brings me back to, do I have resolution? Have I done the pieces of work that I would want to do if I were to die tomorrow? And so I get to keep working on that because, you know, every time you get an opportunity to see somebody else who maybe what we would perceive as missed that chance, we think, could I make sure I take that chance now, even before I have a terminal diagnosis or die catastrophically?
Like it took me a long time to be honest and to be able to work with my anger. And I think that working with anger, see, that's the other way. You know, people will say in spiritual practice, well, it's for the benefit of all sentient beings. You say, oh, that's just, you're just selling a car. What do you mean, your meditation or your prayer? Because when you cool out, then you're more able to be cooled out around other people. When your anger is something, you can watch anger. You know, it's like we talk about pain and suffering, well, there's anger and there's rage. But even more so, there's frustration and there's anger, and you start to meet it at frustration. We were saying before, you learn your desire system, you see when it's frustrated, you even know you're frustrated, you say, watch, anger's gonna rise in my mind. It gets to be like a game almost. And then bam, and then of course you're attached to it for a while. Oh, anger. And you get to step back from it. You get to step back. Moments, 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 and then you get so you can work with your anger. And then when you're in a relationship that's really precious, and nothing is more precious, even your ego anger. Of course, the ego says, look, I'm egoless. That stuff has to be dealt with. But that's why you do practice. It is for the benefit of, if I hadn't done practice, I couldn't have had this relationship.
And me too. And plus you learn little cues.
What a tragedy.
Like we would say when we both got really frustrated with each other, we'd put our hand on our heart, and that would mean,
signal.
Okay, let's just take a little break and then we'll get back to it. We never go to sleep angry, we never part angry.